Numbers that exist first as a distant possibility, then as an approaching reality, then as an inevitability that everyone can see coming but nobody can quite prepare for. 300 is one of those numbers. It sits in the history of this sport with a specific gravity. It separates careers from legacies. It separates players who were very good from players who belong to something longer and more permanent than a single era. 300 home runs means you have done something that most professionals who have ever played this game at the highest level have never done. It means you have stood in a batter's box against the best pitchers in the world, in the most pressurized environments the sport creates, thousands of times across years and injuries and slumps and everything else a career contains, and 300 times, you have won that specific exchange in the most decisive way available. 300 times, the ball has left the park. For Shohei Ohtani, number 300 didn't arrive quietly. It arrived the way most things arrive with him, on its own terms, in its own way, attached to a detail that made the moment even more difficult to process than the number itself. Because Ohtani didn't just hit his 300th career home run. He hit it as part of something that had never happened before. Back-to-back games. Back-to-back moments. The kind of sequence that made legendary pitchers, men who had faced the best hitters of their generation and built careers on understanding what elite contact looks like, sit in front of microphones and say things they admitted they never expected to say about anyone. The first game had already done its damage before anyone fully understood what was coming. Ohtani had stepped to the plate in the 7th inning with the particular focus he carries into at-bats that matter. The pitcher opposing him was not a soft opponent. He was a veteran with a track record of handling premium hitters. A man with a plan and the execution history to make that plan credible. He had worked Ohtani carefully through the early innings. Kept him off balance. Mixed his arsenal with the intelligence of someone who studies and prepares and does not simply hope that talent is enough. For 6 innings, the approach held. Ohtani had reached base once on a walk that the pitcher clearly preferred to a mistake. It was disciplined pitching against disciplined hitting and the score between them was essentially even. Then the 7th arrived. And the pitcher went to his best pitch in the worst possible location. Not dramatically wrong. The margins at this level are never dramatic. It was slightly elevated. Perhaps 2 inches above where it was intended to land. 2 inches that, against most hitters, would have produced a harmless fly ball or a foul tip or nothing at all. Against Ohtani, those 2 inches produced number 299. The ball carried to left center with the kind of authority that makes outfielders take one step and stop. The stadium reacted the way stadiums react when something significant happens inside them. And somewhere in the broadcast booth, someone said the words 299 and then paused, because 299 means 300 is not a question of possibility anymore. It is a question of when. The answer to when turned out to be the very next game. Which was not what anyone had scheduled into their understanding of how milestone moments unfold. Milestones are supposed to create anticipation. They are supposed to generate a day or two of will he or won't he that gives the sports media landscape something to discuss and gives fans something to watch for. 300 was supposed to arrive with a build-up. With a few hitless at-bats that made everyone lean forward. With the particular tension of a number being approached slowly enough to be savored. Instead, Ohtani walked to the plate in the 3rd inning of the following game and treated the occasion with the same disregard for narrative convenience that he treats most occasions. The pitcher had clearly prepared for this moment. The entire opposing team had prepared for this moment. There was a visible adjustment in how they approached him from the 1st inning. Careful. Deliberate. The kind of respect that looks like fear when examined closely enough. It didn't matter. 3rd inning. 2-1 count. A fastball that was located correctly but simply was not fast enough and was not located correctly enough to matter when Shohei Ohtani has decided he is swinging. The ball went to right field. Deep right field. The kind of deep that removes all doubt before the ball has reached its apex. 300. Back-to-back games. The stadium did not react immediately. There was a half-second of collective processing before the noise arrived. As though 18,000 people needed just a moment to confirm that what they had seen was real before they were willing to respond to it. Randy Johnson was asked first. That choice was deliberate. Because if you want an honest opinion about hitting, you ask someone who spent a career trying to prevent it at the highest possible level. Johnson, whose career exists in the conversation about the greatest pitchers in the history of the sport, did not offer his assessment immediately. He listened to the question, looked briefly away, and then spoke with the directness of someone who has nothing to prove and no reason to perform. I faced some of the best hitters who ever lived, Johnson said. I know what it feels like to be in a batter's box against someone who scares you. Not many people scared me. But I'm honest enough to say that watching Ohtani, knowing what I know about pitching, knowing what I know about the margins at this level, he stopped. Started again. There are hitters you prepare for and then execute against and the preparation holds. And then there are hitters where you prepare and execute and it still doesn't hold because they're operating in a place your preparation can't fully reach. He paused. 300 home runs. Back-to-back games for the milestone. He didn't wait for it. He just hit it. That tells you everything about who you're dealing with. Pedro Martinez chose his words with the care of someone who understands that words about Ohtani require precision. Because imprecision leads to either underselling or overstating, and Martinez had never been comfortable with either. What people don't appreciate, Martinez began, is the consistency. Anyone can hit a home run. Good hitters hit them in clusters. Great hitters hit them with regularity. But what Ohtani does, the way he produces across an entire season, against every type of pitcher, in every type of situation, he leaned forward slightly. When I was pitching, I had a mental file on every hitter I faced. Their weaknesses. Their patterns. The pitch and the location that would give me the advantage in the moment that mattered. I could do that with everyone. He held the pause deliberately. With Ohtani, the file keeps changing. Because he keeps changing. Because he identifies what you're doing and he adjusts before you've finished doing it. 300 home runs doesn't surprise me. What surprises me is that anyone is still surprised. The room absorbed that. Because coming from Pedro Martinez, that was not a compliment. It was a verdict. Greg Maddux offered the perspective that only Maddux can offer. Quiet. Analytical. Stripped of sentiment in the way that pure intelligence sometimes strips sentiment away without meaning to. I built my career on location, Maddux said simply. On putting the ball exactly where I wanted it, when I wanted it there. That was the foundation of everything I did for 20 years. He looked at the question for a moment as though examining its components separately. Against Ohtani, location helps. It always helps. But the margin for what counts as good location shrinks. The zone where you're safe gets smaller. Because his coverage of the strike zone and his ability to punish a mistake in any quadrant, he paused. You'd have to be perfect. Consistently, repeatedly, sustainably perfect. And nobody is that. He said the last sentence without drama. As a statement of fact. 300 home runs means 300 times someone wasn't perfect. That's not an indictment of the pitchers. That's an acknowledgement of what he is. What he is. 3 words that kept appearing across every conversation, every broadcast segment, every written response to the back-to-back games and the milestone and the number 300 sitting now permanently in the record alongside his name. What he is resists complete definition. That is the thing that legendary pitchers, men who have spent their entire professional lives categorizing and understanding and solving hitters, keep arriving at when the conversation turns to Ohtani. They can describe what he does. They can analyze the mechanics and the approach and the results. But when the question becomes what he is at the deepest level, what category contains him, what comparison holds, what framework fits, the answers become less certain. More honest. More willing to sit with the discomfort of not fully knowing. 300 home runs in back-to-back games. The number that silenced the experts. Not because they had nothing to say. But because what they said, when they finally said it, sounded less like analysis and more like something closer to awe. And from men like that, in a sport like this,